Kingdom. We're nearing the end of this one. Probably the end of this month we may be done with the Kingdom. And we're in the book of Revelation right now and picking parts out of Revelation to just kind of center things to talk about where he talks about the kingdom and the kingdom being moved from the Son to the Father. And who's in the kingdom, who's not in the kingdom. And that's a lot of what's in Revelation. So that's kind of where our focus is. Doug finished the 7 seals, and then it goes into the 7 trumpets. And I'm just going to summarize the first 4 trumpets, because the last 3 are more relevant, I think, to leading up to the 7th trumpet. And the 7th trumpet has a lot of talking about the kingdom and Christians, which is kind of where I want to get to. I won't get to it today. Doug will probably get to it next week. But in the first trumpet, it's out of Revelation 8. Hail and fire mixed with blood falls and burns up 1/3 of the earth and trees and all the grass. So what's going to happen if that's literal? But what's going to happen at that particular point if you have 1/3 of the trees and all the grass burned up? If all the ruminants don't have any grass to eat, what's going to happen to the ruminants? You know what a ruminant is, right? All the cattle, all the horses, and everything else, they're all going to die. Was famine one of the seals? Yeah. So it's kind of going through some of the same things again with the trumpets that it did in the seals. The second one, a great mountain with fire falls, changes 1/3 of the sea to blood, 1/3 of the sea creatures die, 1/3 of the ships are destroyed. So what's that portraying? How much did people, okay, you have ruminants, cattle, those kinds of things. They don't have grass or anything like that anymore. So where do you go to get food? The sea. So that one's taken away more things. You have more famine. A great star called wormwood falls, changes 1/3 of the rivers and streams to wormwood, killing 1/3 of mankind. So that's kind of obvious what's going to happen. Okay, you don't have clear water. So it's another thing that's another tribulation. But there's a focus for these tribulations. I'll get to that. But there's a focus for these tribulations. That when you look through it, and we're going to go through the last 3 in more detail, as where that focus is as far as the punishment or the wrath that's being done here. The fourth one is the sun and the moon and the stars are darkened by 1/3. What happens when that happens?
No more light.
It's 1/3 less. So what happens to temperature?
Down.
It gets cold. What happens to anything that's trying to grow back? It don't grow back. So we're going to focus on the 3 woes. Now I read those 4 trumpets and I said, if those aren't woes, I don't know what woes are. Because those look like woes to me. But to get more focused on that, we're going to focus on really the 3 woes. I did want to spend a lot of time on Revelation 8 because it's going to take some time to go through the other parts of it. So, the 5th trumpet. Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star from heaven which had fallen to the earth, and the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power was given them as scorpions of the earth have power. They were not to hurt the grass of the earth, nor the green thing, nor any tree, but only the men who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So you see the focus on who they are coming out to really attack. So, who or what was in the bottomless pit?
The scorpions.
Well, they called it scorpions. Sting like a scorpion. Anybody ever been stung by a scorpion?
Yeah, no. My husband had.
It hurts. A lot.
Yeah, my
And
husband.
it stays hurting a lot. And that was just a black scorpion. It wasn't a, like they have in the south, down in the southwest, they have ones that will put you in the hospital if they sting you. And also the Mideast. From what I can tell, it sounds like it was evil. Probably Satan in the bottomless pit.
Usually something like the bottomless pit. I mean, it's pretty symbolic of hell, you know,
Yes.
or Satan's domain at least, you know, however you want to look at it.
And you look at what comes out of it, it's smoke. It's a great furnace. And everything like that. That all kind of seems to reinforce that. And later on in Revelation, it talks about that Satan's going to be loosed for a while. And I think this may correlate to that part of Revelation. I didn't pick it up.
Yeah, it kind of looks like plagues, locusts and stuff coming up out of there.
It would be plague, but what do locusts normally eat?
Grass that ain't there.
Grass and trees. Everything. They eat everything that's vegetation. They will strip everything completely. And that's not what the focus is of these, quote, locusts. And I'm saying, quote, locusts because they aren't locusts. They're symbolic of evil, of what evil is going to do to people who are evil. That's kind of what this particular opening on this fifth trumpet really talks about, what it focuses on. What do locusts do? What do they equate to? Okay, what do they equate to? Death through famine, mostly. I mean, if they eat up all the vegetation, there's nothing to eat, right? Good morning, Fernando. So, who is hurt and who is not hurt by the locusts?
Everyone.
No, not everyone. But only the men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. What's that? Well, who are the people that have the seal of God on their foreheads? Christians. Okay, so it says you can't hurt those people. You can only hurt the ones who don't have the seal of God in their forehead. And they were not permitted to kill anyone, but torment for 5 months. And the torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings a man. And in those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, and death flees from them. So, since the locusts did not kill anyone, what did they do?
It sting.
They tormented them, right? Why they torment for 5 months? What does that mean? This is where you get into kind of what it means from a symbolic standpoint. What does 10 mean? I know Grant studied it. Eternity. Okay, the completion of a time. Okay, 7 is perfection and complete, but 10 is the entire time. 5 is a half. From what I've seen in some of the commentaries, when I look through it, it says, okay, this is kind of the zenith. Okay, this is kind of the turning point as to how long it would be. The turning point is to say it starts to drop off, because most of those people have been tormented and like that. So it's halfway to what's going to happen. It's not all the way done, and it relates to time. The appearance of the locusts, this is where they describe them. Why they call them locusts? That's what John called them. It was like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads appeared to be crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had breastplates like the breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses rushing to battle. They have tails like scorpions and stings, and in their tails is the power to hurt men for 5 months. Again, that's 5 again. They have as king over them the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in the Greek he has the name of Apollyon. The first woe is past. Behold, 2 woes are still coming after these things. So, what does the description of the locust resemble? Nothing we've ever seen. So, what's he trying to say? This is a pretty horrible creature that's being described here as a locust, okay? And you can see it's got, quote, the weapons on it that provides evil to prosecute evil.
Represents suffering.
Yeah, that's the suffering that they're going to inflict. And that's what a lot of this is, but they're horrible. I mean, this is a creature that just, may make your heart stop if you just saw it. Who's the king of the locusts?
Devil.
Huh?
The devil.
Yeah. Here it has the angel of the abyss. Who would that be? Satan, wouldn't it? What might they look like? It's hard to say.
Like a giant grasshopper.
Huh? Like well, it says locust, but is there anything on there that describes a locust? No. So I picked a couple pictures out. One of them was this one. Okay, you can see the tail of the scorpion, the body of a horse, the face of a man, teeth like a lion, and that funky thing on his head is a crown, and wings. And if that one isn't scary enough, that one's really scary.
Hell, yeah.
So that's kind of what he described. Whether that's what he actually saw, might have been. It's an image. The image is to portray something that's evil and horrible, that's been let out of the pit, and to persecute people that aren't God's people. So who's Abaddon? That was in that verse. It says Abaddon and it says Apollyon. Huh? The destroyer. Does your have it in the destroyer in there in your Bible? Is that a footnote or is that what it's written? Huh? It's in parentheses. That's a way to do it. Is there any references to about Abaddon in the Bible? She's looking at her footnotes. Hadn't gotten there. Yes, in Job. The departed spirits tremble under the waters and their inhabitants. Naked is Sheol before him, and Abaddon has no covering. It talks about it in Psalms. Will you perform wonders for the dead? Will the departed spirits rise and praise you? Selah. Will your loving kindness be declared in the grave, your faithfulness in Abaddon? Not in a positive standpoint, but it is talked about. It's talked about in Proverbs.
What they mean by Selah?
Selah is kind of the ending of a prayer. You'll see it a lot in particularly Psalms where they'll go through and say several verses and say Selah. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools, not so. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination of the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves one who pursues righteousness. Grievous punishment is for him who forsakes the way. He who hates reproof will die. Sheol and Abaddon lie open before the Lord. How much the hearts of men! A scoffer does not love one who reproves him. He will not go to the wise. So who's aligned with Abaddon in these kind of verses? What's the context? It's aligned with evil. In the first one, it's aligned with Sheol. Sheol is where? Place of the dead? It's not paradise. Here's the other place. How about Apollyon? That's Greek. Abaddon is Hebrew. Apollyon is Greek. Apollyon, one of my thought was Apollos. Apollos was one of the Greek gods. And here it says basically there was a negative side to him as far as Apollo, and they thought maybe that might have been it. But I found something that seemed like it was more, took the Greek itself, which comes from the verb polyumi, which means to destroy, and it has the prefix apo, meaning from, and the verb to terminate. So it's a destroyer. As Wanda said, it's a destroyer. It's someone who destroys completely. So when John makes his reference back to Abaddon and Apollyon, he's talking about a destroyer that's come. But the destroyer's focus is at those who do not have the seal of God in their forehead, those who are not following Christ. That's the focus.
Is this, sorry to interrupt,
No, it's class.
I mean, is this after the rapture? Or
No, this is before the end of creation.
So in other words, the rapture hasn't happened
Christ has not come and gathered his elect at this particular point. That's why it says, you can go down there, you could persecute all the people that aren't Christians, but the Christians you got to leave alone. So Christ has not gathered up his elect yet at this particular point. So it's prior to that. One of the points I wanted to make on this one is, I've seen other commentaries that say, well, I'm going to take and line up historical events with everything that's in Revelation so I can explain it. The problem with that is if you line it up with historical events, what's going to happen in the future? Nothing. So there's maybe a flaw in trying to force it into historical events that it may not fall into. Some of these are persecutions that are going to come, and they're going to come in parallel. We talked about in the 7 seals, is you don't have a seal and then a seal and a seal and a seal until you get to the 7th seal. 7th seal is the end of creation. And now you're into the trumpets, which is kind of going back through the same iteration as far as going to the end of creation. So I'm not going to try and align this at all to historical events. Daniel, you can do that because Daniel explains it. It says, okay, this was representing this, it represents a Greek empire. This represents this, it represents a Persian empire. But I think it's a little bit of a stretch to try and take historical events and strongly say this aligns exactly to Revelation to explain it, which makes Revelation a difficult book to teach.
It's something like this. I mean, like you say, historically, there's been several waves of things that came out evil that hurt men. They didn't necessarily kill men, but they kept them from the kingdom of God, and they kept them from seeing God like this. I mean,
and certainly in the 5th angel, we're going to see it in the 6th angel too. 6th trumpet. When it says you can't harm anybody who's following Christ, you can only harm people who are not following Christ. Well, when you look at the wars and things that we had, people who were Christians were killed. So that doesn't line up to what he's explaining here. So like I said, a lot of this, you've got to look at the numbers in some of it and understand there's going to be things that are going to be tribulations. But God is still going to take care of those people who are trying to follow him, even in the creation. This is some of the themes that I can pull out of Revelation. So if you're in the kingdom, it kind of brings it back to the class, as opposed to out of the kingdom. There are things happening in Revelation that are happening to the people who are outside of the kingdom because they're not protected. So, and the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. And some versions don't have 4 horns, it just says the horns. once saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the four angels who were bound to the great river Euphrates." And the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and the day and the month and the year were released so that they would kill a third of mankind. We didn't look at this before. Did I ask the question? Oh, what are the four angels holding back? Just when you have an intermission, if you will, or an interim period going into the seventh seal, I'll get to that in a minute. But when you have the angels destroy here 1/3 of mankind, how much is left after the trumpet number 6 has been sounded?
Depends on if you're taking a third, 2/3 that are left, or you're taking half the 2/3, which is a third of the original.
Well, remember, I had the 4 trumpets at the beginning. One of the trumpets took out a third of mankind. This one took out another third. So you're left with 1/3 of mankind. Why were they holding back the wind? What was in the wind? We didn't go through this, but in Revelation 7, this is kind of the interim before you got to the seventh seal being opened, between the sixth and seventh seal. After this, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, so that no wind would blow on the earth or on the sea or on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, having the seal of the living God. And he cried out in a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the bondservants of God, of our God, in their foreheads." So this is back in 7. This is when the angels kind of took their posts. But again, it's symbolic. It's saying those who are going to be protected, God's going to protect. Those who aren't going to be protected, those 4 winds can be released. And that's what it's talk about in the 6th trumpet. So back into Revelation 9. The number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And this is how I saw the vision in the horses and those who sat on them. The riders had breastplates, the color of fire and of hyacinth and of brimstone, and their heads of the horses were like heads of lions, and out of their mouths proceeded fire and smoke and brimstone. Oh, by the way, if it happened in the earth today, how many people live in the earth today? On the surface of the planet? How many? 8 billion. So what we're talking about in the 2 of those trumpets, if it's literal, is 2/3, which is what, 2.75 times, no, 2 2/3. So it's 4, 5, a little over 5 billion are now been destroyed. So you have another weird animals, creatures. So how are these horsemen from the trumpet number 6 similar to the locusts from the trumpet number 5?
These are with the angels of God. They're positive forces.
They're coming to harm. They haven't come out of the abyss. It doesn't say where they come from, does it? But look what they're breathing. So how are they similar and how are they different? I'm only on slide 11. I think I got 23. I'm not going to make it.
The angels are not from God, I mean, they're from God.
Well, what similar as far as description?
The heads are like lions.
Yeah, they had the head of lions, and in locusts they had the teeth like lions. They had the face of a man, but they had teeth like lions. So there's similarities.
So they're also evil.
They're there to persecute evil.
Okay.
How about their tails? Both venomous.
Or like
Both provide venom. What comes from a scorpion's sting is venom. What comes from a serpent bite is venom. Okay, so it's something that they could do. Anything else? Bodies of horses. Remember that quote, locust? It had the body of a horse. This has a man riding on it. The locust didn't. So that's a difference between the two. Is these have men riding on them. They're not men. What color are they in? What are they dressed in? They dressed in white? No, they're not dressed in white. They're dressed in red.
They have breastplates of fire.
Yeah.
The color of fire, and the locusts had breastplates of iron. What's word? There's a little difference, but still describes that part of the armor.
So what might they look like? There wasn't as many good pictures that I could find of this particular one. But that one, the lion, the person dressed in red, you can kind of see a little bit. It's hard to tell, but yeah, there it is. There's the tail of a serpent. It looks like a snake. The head of the lion on the horse with a man on the back. So that's kind of a weird-looking animal, but it's an army of them. Millions of them. And then one that was a little bit different, a little bit more stylish, I guess you could call it. And this one, it has a whole bunch of tails of serpent. But what this one didn't have coming out was that fire. That fire is important. As that fire and that brimstone and everything else that's coming out of its mouth is mostly what it killed by. It also killed by the serpents that were the tail. Frightful creatures. Nothing real.
Could you see
It's
them?
all symbolic. Huh?
We'd all be running.
No, well, we would be, but we're protected. A third of mankind was killed by these three plagues, by fire and the smoke of the brimstone proceeded out of their mouths. So, I'll ask that question. For the power of the horses is in their mouths and in their tails. For their tails are like serpents and have heads, and with them they do harm. So, how is 1/3 to be destroyed? How are they destroying? Plagues, it could be, it could be, who knows? It could be volcanoes, it could be earthquakes, it could be a lot of things that it could be. But it's destruction. I mean, it's fire, the fire and the brimstone that comes out of the mouth, it's the serpents. So you have all kinds of things that are going to be plaguing man as a result of this one. But the rest of mankind were not killed by these plagues, did not repent of their works of their hands, so as to worship demons and the idols of gold and silver and of brass and of stone and wood, which can neither of these hear nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries, nor their immorality, nor of their thefts. So that's why I said, Grant, who's this focused on? People who don't want anything to do with God. That's who this the last trumpet, the first woe and the second woe, which is the fifth trumpet and the sixth trumpet, are all focused in on those people who don't want anything to do with God. Which is what I just said. What's it like for a Christian to live in that world? Because remember, they're in the world. They have been sealed in the forehead. And he said, you can't harm them. You can only harm the people who don't want me being God.
Let me ask you something. All these creatures, instead of saying, okay, they're creatures, they're coming at you, could this be like things that are happening in nature right now on Earth, like climate change, forest fires?
It could be. Now, the climate's been changing since the Ice Age.
Yeah, but not as drastically as it is now. Could it be, because at that time they didn't see modernization like they see it now.
But I think that's why we have to be so careful when we interpret this, because we only know what's within our lifetime and before. We don't know what's going to come after. People could have, 200 years ago, said the same thing.
Yeah.
It was going on because that was drastic to them,
Yeah.
changed to them. And so I think that's why God specifically did not want us to narrow it down. He doesn't want our motivation to be that.
To kind of also answer you in maybe a little bit different way is we can kind of question, is it or isn't it, because it's maybe a little ambiguous. This isn't ambiguous. When this happens, I think it's going to be a sharp contrast to the way things have gone. The people that are not of God, that are persecuting Christians, this is going to be their days that they're going to rue. And it's going to be focused at them. You brought up global warming, whether people agree with that or not. Are Christians suffering alike with non-Christians in that situation?
Yeah.
Yes. This is being very specific. It says this is against non-Christians. Very specific and very unambiguous. And so I think it takes the ambiguity out when you start interpreting to say who is going to be persecuted and who isn't. And it's very distinct in the way it talks about it in Revelation here. So, has this happened? I don't know. Because we're suffering persecution from the world. You know, they're criticizing Christians because we believe what's in the Word, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have your hand up or are you scratching? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we see with the church age, there won't be any more signs until Christ comes again. He'll just come. There's nothing that says it's getting closer or anything else. And some of the seals, in particular, like I said, the war, the famine, and that, we've had that, and it'll continue to have that. This section with the trumpets, this is what happens to the non-church, and it could be some of it happening as we go. But your Revelation is almost like a reverse Genesis as it approaches Judgment Day. This might happen in a blink of an eye, you know, not over a long period of time.
Right.
The people who are against God and don't believe God will be here till the last day. You know, like I say, as he takes his church with him, take the dead, take the living, and then destroys the rest, and they'll still be here on that last day. So it's a lot symbolic. It's not going to be a period of time. Some will happen a long time, and some will happen in little pieces. It's almost like he's slowed down, like this third of mankind, you know, disappears. It's almost like time is slow to see this happen. Well, it'll probably happen in a blink of an eye.
As you have said, it's something specific. It's not, you know, the Christians will not be harmed.
Right.
It's those who refuse to obey God. It's similar to the time in Egypt when the Jews, the
Plagues.
Israelites, the plagues were there. The Israelites, they were living in the same era, but it did not harm them.
Yeah.
It only harmed the Egyptians.
Because, if you will, they had the seal of God because they were following God, and the Egyptians were following their false god, which would be Pharaoh and all the other gods that they had. So, again, it's something to keep in mind, and that kind of brings it back to where the perspective that we're looking at Revelation from is who's in the kingdom and who's outside of the kingdom, and why God continues to protect his kingdom from evil. But the people who don't want to be part of the kingdom, God's not protecting. The angel in the little book. So this is between kind of the 6th and 7th trumpet. And I didn't get into the 7th trumpet, so I'm going to leave that one for you next week.
Yeah, the seventh trumpet, probably all these things, the trumpets, the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, and seventh judgment day.
And the seventh is completion. Yes. But this one's got some numbers in it that we can talk about. I saw another strong angel coming down out of heaven, clothed with a cloud, and the rainbow was upon his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book which was open. He placed his right foot on the sea and his left on the foot on the land, and he cried out with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. And when he had cried out, the seven peals of thunder uttered their voices. This part here is really vague, and it's never interpreted. It's really a difficult part. But who might the strong angel be? And it's an angel.
Who's the messenger of God?
All angels are messengers, but a strong angel.
The one that he was like an archangel.
It's an archangel.
Gabriel.
We don't know who, whether it's Gabriel or Michael, or there's another one. We don't know.
Michael is his,
But the other ones are talking about angels.
yeah.
Not this one. This is a strong angel. How do we know it's an angel and not Jesus? Was Jesus an angel? No. Would have described him differently, and it does describe him differently in Revelation 1 and throughout the book of Revelation. When it talks about Christ, there's a lot of similarities here. So the pillars of fire, his face was like the sun. But if his face was like the sun, who else had a face like a sun? But it wasn't Jesus. Moses. When did it shine like the sun? After he was in the presence of God. So this is an angel that is really close to the throne. Whoever this angel is really close to the throne. And I think that's why his face shines like the sun. Because he exists in the presence of God.
Stephen was described that way too, right?
Huh?
Wasn't Stephen described that way just as he got stoned?
It said he looked like he had the voice of an angel when he looked up into heaven and saw Jesus sitting in the right hand, but while they were stoning him, I don't remember, it shined like the sun. I don't remember. It might have, I just don't remember. The rainbow on his head. We're coming up on the destruction, which is the seventh trumpet. What was the rainbow about? Not what it's about today. What was the rainbow about? Huh?
That he would never destroy the world again with water.
That's right. That was a promise. Okay. And he clothed in a cloud. Christ wasn't clothed in a cloud. He was clothed in white robes. And he rode on the cloud. So it's different. When the seven peals of thunder had spoken, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Seal up the things which the seven peals of thunder have spoken, and do not write them." Then the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heaven and the things in it, and the earth and the things in it, and the sea and the things in it, that there will be delay no longer. So what do we know about the seven peals of thunder? Easy. Nothing. Whatever it was that John saw, he said, don't write it down.
Just like the scroll.
Yeah. Yeah, what's in the scroll? We know about the seals, but we don't know what's in the scroll. So what does a strong angel swear by?
Him who
Who?
lives forever and forever.
Who is that? It's Christ. If you look in Colossians in the first chapter, it talks about it. It says, by him, through him, and for him, everything was created. Everything in the earth, everything in the sea, everything in the sky. everything you can see, everything you can't see, everything in creation was created by him, by Jesus. He was the Word. He was the one who spoke it into existence. He did the will of the Father then. He did the will of the Father when he came and he died on the cross and was risen. And he's going to do the will of the Father again when he comes back, and he ends it all. He's the Alpha. He's the Omega. That's who that angel is swearing by. So that really seals it to say, this is an angel. It is not Christ. What's not going to be delayed any longer? Judgment. The end. I get to 17. I'm doing good. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he was about to sound, then the mystery of God is finished, as he preached to his servants, the prophets. Then the voice, which I heard from heaven, I heard again speaking with me and saying, go take the book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the land. Question here, what's the mystery? Here it says the mystery of God is finished. But what was the mystery of God? Yeah, here it is in Ephesians. If indeed you have heard of the stewardship of God's grace, which was given to me for you, that by revelation there was made known to me the mystery, as I wrote before in brief. So Paul mentioned this several times. By referring to this, when you read, you can understand my insight into the mystery of Christ, which in other generations was not made known to the sons of men, as it has been revealed to the holy apostles and the prophets in the Spirit. To be specific, that the Gentiles are fellow heirs and fellow members of the body and fellow partakers of the promise of Jesus Christ through the gospel. That's the mystery. The mystery is being spread and being finished, coming up on the end of creation. That's when it's being finished. That's when it's being spread out throughout all the nations. And I think I'm going to stop there because it's just about quarter of. I'm going to let you talk about the little book and about the witnesses. Yeehaw. Thank you for your attention.